Yuliana Topazly. I'm a director of My Outspace, an award-winning social enterprise. And today I will do a webinar about how to maintain a work-life balance as an entrepreneur. This particular subject is very, very close to my heart, and I will tell you why. But hopefully by the end of this webinar, you'll have a few tips you can take away to be able to apply some of the tools and find the ways how you can maintain the work-life balance for yourself as an entrepreneur. A little bit about me. I have several hats. I am an award-winning social entrepreneur. I'm an academic. I'm lecturing in social enterprise and business development, have a PhD in entrepreneurship, and I've also been named top most inspiring mentors in the UK, which I'm really proud of because I do a lot of mentoring, I do a lot of support, particular social entrepreneurs. But let me just tell you how the whole thing started and actually why this specific topic is so close to my heart. 11 years ago, I went through all sorts of various difficulties in life. Like sometimes this happened to us as women. I had a really good job. Everything was absolutely fine. I got married and I gave birth to my fantastic daughter. And at that time, I could not possibly imagine that my employer wouldn't really understand my needs and wouldn't really consider different ways of how I can bring my talent, my skills and expertise to the workplace. I was refused flexible working arrangements, and there was no even a conversation around how the work-life balance can be considered within that workplace. And that really put me in a very, very difficult situation, emotionally, financially, because I actually had to make a choice. I had to make a choice if I continue with work, which doesn't really award me or understands me, or I have to look at other opportunities of how I can use my skills, knowledge, and competencies to apply myself in the world of work. And through that realization, I've actually found out that there is a huge amount of other families who are very, very talented individuals, but they're hiding away from the workplace because they have children. And I think that cannot be right. Why? Why in the century we're talking about that it's almost like a guilt to have a child? And that's what triggered me to research and find out more detail and actually looking at other opportunities where there can be a connection of the work-life balance for entrepreneurs. So one of my first initiatives was that I combined workplace, childcare provision, and the business support under one roof. So that's how my Outspace was born. And the core aim of that enterprise, and still is to look in how we can change the women's life by building the confidence and providing access to the services under one roof, and really encourage entrepreneurship among women population, but also to lead it to the financial independence, which is very, very important because there's lots of passion out there. There is a lot of social enterprises started by women. In fact, over 80% social enterprises started by women. But it needs to lead to the financial independence. It needs to lead the financially sustainable element of the enterprise. So to make every family financially sustainable, that's what's key and still key aim of our work. So physical space, childcare provision, and the advice to support those who in need but might have a barrier to develop because of the childcare provision. And that's how I've been named a person who maybe been envied by work-life balance. My daughter was part of the enterprise, my daughter grown up in that physical space, but was it really a good work-life balance? It wasn't a perfect combination for myself. And that's a very important element because the work-life life balance definition is quite evolving. Lots of people talking about it, but actually, what is important to understand, it means completely different things to different individuals. So what it might mean to me might mean a very different things to anyone else on this call. So it's important to understand and remember that work-life balance is something that you must define by yourself, taking into account your circumstances, take into account your goals, take into account your longer term visions, and what actually the best works for you. Okay, so let me look at some of the strategies which I've learned through my about 11, 12 years of running the social enterprise, balancing various hats and finding my own life-work balance. but also supporting others to find what it really means for them and why it's so important. So let's go through them. What are those strategies? First of all, and one of the first that will be on the list, is let go of fear. And you might say, oh, what the hell's going on, Yuliana? What do you actually mean? What is here is sometimes we are, particular to find the women, are really focusing on something we want to do. We fear of failure. We fear of not understanding. We want to get it perfect. We're not sure if we're asking the right questions. So we're constantly thinking about it. And as we develop, as an entrepreneur, it's always in the back of my mind, always in the back of our mind. And that's quite important, that sometimes we actually need to let that fear off and really relax. Now, that also leads to the second point. The second point is create boundaries. All of us have lives, families, work and life, business and life. And both of those sides do need to have boundaries. Again, whatever those boundaries mean to you as an entrepreneur. Okay, so if that means that at 5 o'clock you stop, you don't do anything else, you don't check your emails, and you completely dedicate yourself to your family, that's your boundary. Okay, you decide what that means to you. If at 3 o'clock you have to pick up your daughter from school and you have to stop between 3 and 5 to give her the best time after school, make sure she comes back, does the homework, get the dinner ready, whatever it is, it's your boundary. It's your individual boundary. But it's very important to be honest with yourself and create the boundary, which means something to you, and you follow it. Okay, not just put it on the list, not just think about, but actually make it as an action point. The third strategy which you may consider is schedule your life, not just business. A lot of entrepreneurs do a lot of extremely organized around their businesses, but it might not necessarily apply to their everyday life as an individuals. And it's quite important to treat your life in the same way as you treat your business. You have to dedicate time, you have to plan things for your life, for your family, your hobbies, whatever you enjoy in your life, for yourself, taking yourself as a very important element of the business. So it needs to be in the way you're scheduling things around yourself as well as the business. Do not forget about yourself. The other strategy I would strongly encourage and mention, and which can really help me as well, work it all out. The stress levels, the anger sometimes, and the fear, all sorts of emotions we go through as an entrepreneur, because every day is different, every day brings new challenges. And it's really, really important to look after your physical health. If you go for a walk, go for a run, punch the box bag, whatever it means to you, again, do some physical activity. It really helps to relax your mind, and it really helps to take your mind away from those fears, frustrations, stressful situations, and really calm yourself down and be able to move forward. Other strategies which are really interesting. So get comfortable saying no. And sometimes people say, Yuliana, what do you mean? You can't say no to a business opportunity. Well, you can. Some business opportunity takes so much time and effort, which means money, that actually, in some ways, if you calculate all those efforts, might not have a commercial sense to do or to pursue. So it's really important to understand what is the threshold of you to say yes, and at which point you will start saying no. A lot of entrepreneurs, particularly in early stages, are scared of saying no. So they have a fear of saying no because they might think, okay, the customer might not come back, or they might see it differently. It's really important to learn and get comfortable and confident of saying no. Next one is quite an interesting one. So time boxing, try time boxing. If you had an interactive session, I probably will ask you, what do you think it means? But what it actually is again, as an entrepreneur, particularly in early stages, we feel that we have to do everything by ourselves, okay? We're good at everything. We love our business. We want it to succeed. And we want to be in a full control of absolutely every single minor thing. See the whole thing. And that's not necessarily a good thing. Yes, of course, we want to be in control, but it's important to understand and prioritize things. And sometimes those maybe sound like a little very important thing, might be delegated to somebody else. But it also connects very often to how actually much your time is worth. Because sometimes you may focus on more of a high profile, going for sales, looking at the sales strategy, creating proposals, talking to the customers, while the smaller bits, which might be more administrative tasks, can be delegated to somebody else who does really well, who may does it quicker, and it costs much cheaper. So really try to, again, it's connected to the first point of the fear, but try to let the fear go and look, what can actually you good at? What can you do very quick, very effective, but what can be boxed up to somebody else? Okay? What can be outsourced? What can be done in a different way to save yourself time and really focusing on the priorities for yourself as an entrepreneur and your strength? The next point is putting yourself first. I think it connects all the points as above. You do need to prioritize yourself. It's extremely important. If you are not able to prioritize yourself, your business will not succeed. Because if you are not physically, emotionally able to continue with the business, it will be very difficult to progress. So you have to put yourself as an individual as an absolute priority within that work-life balance element is. It's very important. And the final point is accept help. Lots of entrepreneurs, from my experience, particularly women, don't really like to asking for help. There might be a fear of asking the wrong questions. There might be a fear not really understanding where the help might be. But I think it's very, very important to really accept we all need help. I don't know everything. I don't think anyone on this call knows everything. And it's important to share experience. It's important to ask for help. You don't necessarily have to take those ideas and advice forward, but to hear the different perspective on the issues you may have and get support. Get maybe a very, very qualified, very focused support, which will take you 2 or 3 years to read and understand. It's very important. And being in the UK, part of the Business and IP Centre network, and this particular project, that's exactly what this is all about. You can get help, but it's important to accept help and ask the questions, be part of the conversation, and be able to see what's important for your business, what's important for you, and how you can find a work-life balance for yourself. So the bottom line is, if you want to create sustainable work-life balance, you are going to need to work on it. And you have to find a right fix of actions and mindfulness for yourself, which actually works for yourself, okay? So it's only you as an individual can know what that means to you, what strategies will work for you, and what actual balance looks like for you as an individual and as a business. When we talk about work-life balance and all the strategies to keep us healthy, happy, emotionally fit, I cannot mention a fantastic scheme which communicated in many different ways, which is the 5 ways to well-being. And in some ways, it connects lots of elements which I mentioned above in the presentation. It is about being active. Physical activity are very, very important. Do what you enjoy. Move around. Really, its impacts on your emotional and physical health. Connections, connect, ask for help. Talk, listen, be there, feel connected. Being part of the network, being part of the peer-to-peer support network is extremely important for entrepreneurs. And very often that really helps to find the right balance, to find the support, but also find that motivation and encouragement to get on. It's also about giving, because we give, we take, it needs to be a right combination. If we only take, that's not going to be part of the network. It's not going to be part of the support network. So any time, any words, any advice you can give to somebody else will be extremely valuable. And sometimes one word can make a huge difference in individuals as an entrepreneur, specifically as the founders who might be struggling in finding the right balance and developing it further. And also taking notice of what happens, taking notice of the trends, but most importantly, taking notice of yourself as an entrepreneur. Take notice and take care of yourself and find the right balance for you. Thank you very much for listening, and I would welcome your questions.
Hi there. So at the moment, there aren't any questions in the chat. So I'll give it a moment. So I have a question for you instead. I'm Sophie, by the way, from Croydon, the Startups and London Libraries champion from Croydon. My question for you is, when business startups get started, often they might be working another job. They might be finding that they're having to work kind of first thing in the morning, late at night, and that it can be difficult to juggle. What would you say around kind of working a full-time job and also trying to make time for your business kind of outside normal work hours? How would you say a startup should approach that and not burn themselves out kind of by always being on?
Sophie, thank you very much for your question. It's a really good question because it is an issue, and a lot of people do ask me, how can I balance both? Because financially, I cannot quit my job just yet, and I have to get to the certain point of their business idea development to be able to generate revenue and therefore becoming financially sustainable. What I would say that I've done myself in the past, it's important not to have a choice. So it's not to completely, don't quit your job just yet if you don't feel comfortable with that. You can go on less hours potentially, but you've got to be very honest with yourself of how much time you can commit to your business. So if it is a 5 hours a week, that's a 5 hours a week. That's what you allocate to your business. Trying to work 9 to 10 o'clock in the evening, 24 hours a day, it's not going to be a good idea. And as you're saying, it will lead to burning out. And what actually happens a lot of businesses I see is there's so much passion, so much energy and enthusiasm right in the beginning. And when that's happened to the point that actually they're getting close to burning out, then they stop and they disappear from the world of business. And that harms the business more than you can possibly imagine, because it moves you backwards about 3 times more than your starting point. Because if the customer is trying to get in touch with you and they can't get in touch with you, if somebody trying to find information, they can't find you, that's it, they will never come back. So it's very important to be very honest with your time, manage your time well, go part-time if you need to, if you need more time to spend on your business, but try not to overdo it with both, because it will not lead to a positive outcome emotionally for yourself and for the business.
Great. We've had a thank you from Emily in the chat though, and I'd just like to say thank you as well for being here, for coming along and presenting today, Yuliana. If anybody does have a question for Yuliana and they do want to ask her anything, if you pop it in the chat, I'm very happy to share your email address or forward any questions onto her.
Sophie, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure to be part of this fantastic week and this Global Entrepreneurship Week as well. And also thank you personally, because you're doing fantastic work at the Croydon Libraries and supporting small businesses with advice and training. That's a fantastic reference point for lots of local entrepreneurs. So thank you for your help.